Let's talk about job cuts in the mining sector now. In the studio with me, Michael Bagraim from Bagraims Attorneys, and also Jacques, Chief Economist, Mining Economist at Pan African. Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining us. Jacques, if I can start with you. I've just got something now, a couple of snippets coming out of President Zuma's speech, which started at 11 o'clock this morning. It says here, South Africa needs faster economic growth and a stable and growing mining sector is needed to accomplish this. We know that. And I think Minister Shabangu knows that we need some drastic action in the mining sector, and she came out with something to say there's some kind of rescue plan that's being mooted. Horses and stable doors and bolting, that seems to come to mind.
Yeah, it's actually very difficult for the government to. It's actually very difficult for the government. They've got COSATU and them are together. It's a Siamese twin, and I've been thinking, if I was them, what can I do to help? I can't upset COSATU, and I can't really do more against business. I'm sure you saw the ratings in the paper this morning. We now number 53 out of 60 as far as product competitiveness is concerned. And the whole story in the world is all the economies that are doing okay. The story is it austerity or is it to have a more efficient economy? And mostly the economies like France and even the other southern European countries, they focused more on austerity and trying to forget about efficiency, like labour regulations. And it seems the countries in the world that are making it have a more efficient economy, and an efficient labour market is one of them. And with the government having as their big voting catch partner the COSATU, it's actually they're in a very difficult position. I really don't know how they can go out of that. Even government, there was proposed a tax deduction, double tax deduction on a wage subsidy. Now that was one of the interventions, although the taxpayer then pays for it, but then if the market then will sort it out, if government comes with, I would say that's the furthest they can go with intervention at this stage.
What do you think, Mike?
I've got a very different point of view. I think we need to implement the law and for the government to stop interfering like they're doing. And let's call a spade a spade. One of the mines said that we need to retrench, and they said no. And then they threatened them with their license and
You're
all
talking
sort of
about Anglo-American Platinum, 14,000 down to 6,000, and those 6,000 are still being contested.
And they're going to go on strike for that 6,000. This is bloody ridiculous because they're destroying an industry. And I think someone should start respecting the Labour Relations Act. If an employer can't afford an employee and saying that you're not producing and we're not going to be able to justify you,
but when we get tough with the people that you're speaking about, then they become more militant and more violent. And I'm sorry, I'm not generalising. That is simply the case.
Yeah, but how much more violent then can you be than when you kill someone? They've done the worst. It's like saying I'm going to report you to the receiver revenue. Once you report it, then you report it. Then what you must do is do what is right. And we need to implement the labour law.
Maybe we should also start doing things like getting mining rights issues sorted out quicker in various departments, the DMR, for example, and also just get rid of the layers of bureaucracy that makes it so difficult to open a mine, for example. Jacques, I mean, that's the starting point from my point of view.
I think the mining rights is a very, if you talk to bankers, all the big banks complain because people come with feasibility studies, but the people behind the feasibilities aren't really credit worthy. So there's been a lot of applications for mining rights, and people are taking them up, but they can't carry on. They haven't got the credibility, the experience, the knowledge to actually run that mine, and the banks can't give them the money. They also don't have their own capital normally. They've got nothing. That's another reason why the banks can't help them. So they come with this paper, I've got a mining right, and then they want to open a mine.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. And then the labour story is of course a big challenge. And
do you agree with what Michael said about applying the letter of the law?
I think I agree with that. And if people ask me what government should do, I said they should do nothing. Allow the market, with the current labour market legislation, just let the market sort itself out, which they to some extent are trying to do. I think it's maybe a bit of a storm in the teacup. There's a lot of panic about the three unit sort of powers in the union labour movement. Now the first two, COSATU, the internal two legs in COSATU, seems to be busy being solved. The ANC, the ministers are there, Cyril Ramaphosa, with his incredible negotiation skills. We know how he put Rolf Meyer-Ura on. So I think he could get Kusatu together again. Kusatu is quite knowledgeable, and Kusatu knows they can't kill the goose that lays the golden egg. Excuse the pun, the golden eggs are very small at this stage.
Platinum eggs as well, yeah.
Yeah, platinum eggs as well. I think Kusatu is aware of that, and that's why they didn't go as drastically and radically as AMCO wanted to do in the Rustenburg area, in that with the because when the platinum.
But are they being strong enough? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Michael, bring you in on this one. Are they being strong enough? You see, they're getting themselves together, but I don't see them visible. I don't see them denouncing various incidents that have become all too frequent.
Quite frankly, they don't want to denounce. They need to be asking for more than AMCU. So again, I disagree with the discussion that's happening. I think Kusatu, in fact, is not mature. And I think they're just looking for more bums on seats. They're looking to ensure that their numbers go up. They've already lost 11% overall. They can't afford this. They're going to go bankrupt. And the bottom line is these unions rely on the income they receive from their members. And their members will follow whoever's asking for the most. We're in a state of terrible flux at the moment. The business community is suffering badly, and they're already saying, well, why should we buy mines here? Why should we invest more? And you keep hearing figures of billions of rands that business don't invest. We then have President Zuma this morning at 11 o'clock cautioning everyone. Well, thank God he did that. At least as the head of state, he's saying, this is a key industry, and you guys are screwing it up.
Yeah. Well, I do think that the one good thing that's come out about Minister Shabangu and President Zuma is at least they're visible, because they've been invisible for a while. But what about this for the long term? What about saying, South Africa, we've been losing jobs in the mining sector for decades now. We're never going to recover those jobs. Mining is going to be increasingly mechanized. So let's prepare our economy for a mining sector that doesn't ever produce the same amount of jobs that it's used to, and start skilling people up in other areas. I mean, go for the big long-term plan, should be away from mining and into other areas. Jacques, what do you think?
No, I agree with that. But I think just to come back to the short term, because this is really the crisis now. I think because the ANC, it's so important for the ANC to have a peace and quiet and a sort of a investment confidence again back in South Africa. I think the next step, and I'm very optimistic about that AMCU is also going to, the leader of AMCU wanted to speak to Zuma. I'm sure he's spoken to Zuma. Zuma speaks to everybody. He's not the person that wouldn't. Yes. I think in the short term, we're going to see, I think the market will be surprised. I think the labour market is actually going to be not so, these wage negotiations will be not so difficult as everybody's predicting, because everybody knows, the unions know, that these South African, that's the good news of our bad economic. That's looking in the rear view mirror, looking at our past, the GDP number now. But the unions are all aware that there aren't really many job possibilities. So they're not going to try now go on strikes where they know their bosses could just, their factories.
Okay, we'll leave it there. So you're optimistic about 2013 wage negotiation season, which is like the Comrades Marathon, comes around about the same time every year. Michael, you're fine. Are you as optimistic as Jacques Botha is?
No. Unfortunately, Jacques and I love each other, but we can't agree on these things. While this is happening, and under our very noses, the police admin services have just gone on strike this morning. And I think everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. And unions know that there aren't jobs out there, but they think strikes is the first port of call, unlike we had 5-6 years ago, where at least people negotiated before they went on strike. Now it's common practice. You strike and then you negotiate. This is not good news for 2013 at all.
We'll leave it there.